Hello and welcome again to the Writer Review. This is Eric Curut Writer, and this week we're going to be taking a look back at the 1985 neo-noir action film titled Year of the Dragon. Now, Year of the Dragon runs for 134 minutes long. It is directed by Michael Cimino, and the script was written by Michael Cimino along with Oliver Stone. It was produced by Dino De Laurentiis. The score was done by David Mansfield, the cinematography, David Thompson, the editing, Francois Bonneau, and it was distributed by MGM. The stars of the movie include Mickey Rourke, John Lone, Ariane Koizumi, Raymond J. Barry, Leonard Tiermo, Caroline Kava, Eddie Jones, and Victor Wong. Deep in the heart of New York City's Chinatown lives a ruthless group of evil marauders whose legacy's been dated back thousands of years. Their motives are based primarily on greed, corruption, and power. The kingpin behind this organization is a hardened criminal named Joey Tai, played by John Lone, and his mission is to wage war on the fortified interests in both the Asian and Italian communities in the profitable drug trade. The streets are drenched in blood. That is until Polish-American police detective Captain Stanley White, played by Mickey Rourke, steps in and takes over Chinatown. Joining forces along with him is a news journalist named Tracy Shu, played by Ariane, is also there by his side. White engages in a confrontation against the mayhem on this turf. The fight that's coming at both enemies is quite inevitable. It is a matter of who will survive. Here's what I gotta think about this movie. When I see Mickey Rourke perform in this movie, it gives me kind of a light feeling in my head. He is a walking demonstration of method acting, if you ever would find the definition of it. His acting, his clothing, his physical appearance is truly what I expected from the character of Stanley White, based on the best-selling novel by Robert Daley. Rourke was just custom-made to play the role of Stanley White. I just could not see any other performer capable of pulling off this very complex character. You see, Stanley White, even though I think his real name was actually Stanley Wyszynski, but I guess he decided to anglicize his name to White, is a Polish-American. He's I guess you could say a perpetual scar-tissued Vietnam vet. He is a very flawed character, not exactly one of the most likable people you'll ever meet. He's downright prejudiced, hates anything that's Asian, and he seems to be somewhat of what you call the anti-hero. You know, the kind of guy who you could still root for, even though he breaks rules. He looks at a rule book and then just, you know, rips out a few pages just to blow his nose with it. You know, that's just the kind of guy Stanley White is. He doesn't give a flying fuck about rules. If you have to get down and play dirty, he truly plays dirty, and he shows no sympathy or absolute remorse for his actions. But why do we like him so much? It's because of his flaws. Usually flawed characters come across as being quite believable, and that's what truly makes the character Stanley White all the more unique. But he's not really alone in this movie. John Lone was also impressive as the evil kingpin Joey Tai, as he proves to be a fierce competitor for Detective White. Lone, who is like one of the most talented performers in the Asian community, goes beyond the parameters of being just a one-dimensional sneering villain. There are plenty of diabolical incidents that he accomplishes in this movie that will even make the audience root for him. I think that, like, right after Mickey Rourke, John Lone's character Joey Tai is the complete opposite of what you may call the anti-villain. He may come across as being, far more superior in intelligence. He is, a charming businessman. He kind of, the characters of Stanley White and Joey Tai kind of remind me a bit of Popeye Doyle's character in The French Connection and his adversary. I really totally forgot his name. In the ways like we have the flawed hero and the not so flawed villain. He comes across as, John Lone's character Joey Tai comes across as being very compassionate, a very dedicated guy to his craft, even though he's in a crooked business, in a crooked enterprise, and he's of course the leader of a very dangerous group. But still, he adds enough charisma and enough charm for even the audience to like this guy. It's okay to root for the villain. There's nothing really wrong with rooting for villains. As long as they play their role effectively and as long as they come across as being menacing and threatening, then you can actually root for these characters. As long as they play their roles effectively. As long as they're convincing as a villain, I don't see what's so wrong with showing a little approval to villain characters. In fact, he's so diabolical he can even make Cho Yun-fat green with envy. After a 5-year sabbatical from Heaven's Gate, Michael Cimino did indeed make a winner here. This is one film that deserves the purchase and should never be left on the shelves unwatched. If you are a fan of underworld Hong Kong films, look no further. You may even be impressed by the soundtrack. It does kind of add flavor to every scene, which is very familiar to The Deer Hunter. Granted, people will dismiss me when I tell them that Mickey Rourke is in this movie. Sure, back in the 90s, Mickey Rourke was on a bit of a downward spiral, being in and out of the law, decided to sort of step down from acting to pursue a career in boxing. And then, of course, his in and out of the laws, his many plastic surgery has turned this handsome devil into a somewhat homely plastic man. And, back in the 80s, Mickey Rourke totally rocked. Today, with the exception of The Wrestler, he has been lowered to making direct-to-DVD films, and his once handsome face looks like it has been molded like soft clay, thanks to some really totally fucked up plastic surgery. But don't let his downward spiral get the best out of everyone. You must see Rourke in his glory days, when he was a hungry young thespian who wanted a little action. And of course other people will dismiss me when I say that Michael Cimino directed the movie and that Oliver Stone co-wrote the script with Cimino. Of course, people will never forgive Michael Cimino for the disastrous movie Heaven's Gate, where there was a lot of noise, a lot of steam, and animals being mutilated. But if he could just forget the past and concentrate on just one movie that Michael Cimino actually accomplished, that was like the post Heaven's Gate era, you know, forgive and forget. Okay, everybody deserves forgiveness here, and give this movie a chance, in spite of who directed the movie or who starred in it or who wrote the script. Of course, you know, a lot of fans, especially in the Asian community, were totally outraged because of the false racial stereotypes that was given in the Asian community about this movie being racist. Well, what do you expect? I mean, you know, the leading character was a racist character. He was bigoted. I mean, he was probably no different than Popeye Doyle, who was also quite a bigoted cop. But yet people praised Gene Hackman for his performance and even went as far as to win an Oscar. Mickey Rourke was not nominated for an Oscar. No, in fact, I think the closest to a high prestigious award was John Lone, who was actually nominated for a Golden Globe for his Best Supporting Actor performance in this movie. Mickey Rourke wasn't even nominated for an Academy Award or a Golden Globe, and yet he was badly chastised. And this movie was chastised, especially in the Asian community, because of the slanderous remarks it had towards Asians and the bad stereotypes and the emphasis of such words like, well, the use of the C bombs and the yellow N bombs. I'm not saying those words. I was never raised that way. But when you think about it, I think every ethnic group has been badly stereotyped in movies. Every one of them. No one has ever been not stereotyped. So I don't see why this movie should have been slandered. But I guess in the PC environment that we live in, you know, I think there are times when people should just lighten up at times. It's only a movie. It shouldn't be taken too seriously. In fact, if I had to pick any sore thumbs about this movie, for me, it was the performance of Ariane, a model trying to release her acting chops as a love interest to the widowed Stanley White. She is, of course, the young journalist who has formed an alliance with Stanley. She just can't seem to act her way out of a paper bag. Many times it feels as though she's trying to like read off the cue cards or just trying to read off lines off her script. I mean, she was just totally unconvincing. Sure, she may have some moments, but it's very few and far between. And for all those people who hated the way we dressed in the 80s, well, that's just too bad now, is it? I mean, the triad dresses exactly like the way punks used to dress back in the dark ages, complete with baggy pants, members-only jackets, spikes, and exotic colored hairspray. I mean, what do you expect? It was released in 1985. Duh! What more do you want? And, you know, for those who feel offended by this movie or squeamish, then, you know, you don't have to watch it. Then maybe this movie just isn't for you. If I was to give this movie a scale out of 10, I would definitely give it an 8. Mickey Rourke was just fantastic in his performance as Stanley White. His flawed character, very much taken out of the pages of Gene Hackman's Popeye Doyle, he pulled it off flawless. Maybe he wasn't up there with Hackman's Doyle character in The French Connection, but he was about as close to it as you can get. John Lone, excellent as always. And as for those who still haven't forgiven Michael Cimino for his flawed movie, Heaven's Gate, well, let's not let the past keep you eternally plastered in your heads. I guess this ends my writer review. Thank you all for listening in. Remember, write to me with any comments. Be kind, be courteous, and I'll be back with another review. Until then, keep watching these movies. Goodbye.